Today on Locked On Red Wings, the Detroit Red Wings snap their 4-game losing streak and get on a 2-game, little bit of a hot streak going on here as they head into Nashville on Wednesday.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. I am a podcast producer for the Daily J, a WWJ News Radio podcast, while Scotty is the freelance journalist for the Detroit News, as well as a host for the Locked On Tigers. And Scotty, I think you said it on the Thursday episode we recorded, because we didn't record Friday because I went up north hunting and the Red Wings played on the West Coast. So there was no way I was recording at 1 a.m. for that game. But I think you said it on the Thursday episode that this team is consistently inconsistent. And after winning 3 straight games, they then proceeded to lose 4 straight games. Now they've won back-to-back to finish out their road trip. And they finished out the road trip, in hindsight, 2-1-1, which is actually not bad. They got 5 out of a possible 8 points. Let's start with the game on Thursday, the Sharks game that we didn't get to recap because, again, I was up north. Didn't see a single deer, but that's how it goes. That's why they call it hunting, not killing. But the Red Wings looked pretty bad there in the first period, but kind of corralled it. Their offense came alive, and a lot of that has to do with the support they got from the defensive side of the puck.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this was a game where Husso didn't look as amazing in that game. He looked fantastic in Columbus, and we'll talk about that, but he didn't look as great in this one. I think that this was a weird game where defensively the Wings weren't that bad. They gave up 4, but I don't think there was that bad of a defensive performance. I agree with you, but I think that they almost tried to overcompensate defensively, and they were super aggressive defensively, and everything was an attempted break, and everything was an outlet pass or a really aggressive forecheck at times. Again, then there were times when it was just dump and chasey again, but that's besides the point. But I felt like they were at times attempting to be really aggressive, and it did lead to, 7 goals on 20 shots or something ridiculous for the Wings. It was wild, a really weird game, and they took care of business, and they should have destroyed this team, and they did, which is great. And yeah, I agree with you. I think the defensive performance, while it on paper it might not look stellar, I think that it was at least an attempt to change strategy, which is really all we've been asking for.
Yeah, so this team, I think the one thing that impressed me most about the San Jose Sharks game after I went back and I was able to watch it is that they played a really clean game. They only drew 1 penalty in that game while the Sharks took 3. Obviously, they weren't able to get any power play goals, but one of my biggest gripes with this team was their inability to score goals on 5-on-5 and the inability to not take penalties. They took 1 penalty in the first period, and they scored 6 5-on-5 goals, and the 7th was a goal into an empty net. Again, you're playing the Sharks, and it's important to beat the teams that are down in the standings. You failed to do that against the Ducks. You blew a lead there, but you came out and you did your business against the Sharks, despite the fact that Husso wasn't on the top of his game, but the offense came alive, and a lot of that had to do with the defense. Filip Hronek got a goal in that game, and that started he's red hot. He and Moritz Seider. Moritz Seider got the game winner, his first of the season, and I think it's going to have the same effect that the goal that Raymond got when he finally got the monkey off his back. I think that is going to be the confidence builder, because you saw in the game against the Blue Jackets, he looked stellar. We'll talk about the Blue Jackets game in the second half of the episode, but a lot of this, and we didn't talk a lot about this, but a lot of this team's success is also going to come from what the defense can do to jump up in the play and support. And we got to see that in abundance on Thursday and on Saturday. The Hronek, you had Jake Walman got a goal, Ben Chiarot got a goal in the game on Saturday. The defense is going to play a huge role if this team's going to have success. And 5-on-5 goals, man, that's huge. So Again, I don't like the fact they gave up 4 goals. Husso wasn't on his top game. Neither was James Reimer. I think Reimer gave up quite a few bad ones. The goal he gave up against Veleno, he overcommitted to the right
literally
side.
had like 20 or 21 shots and scored 7 goals.
It was 20 shots against, and 6 of them went in on
Yeah,
James
you're
Reimer.
right, because empty netter. There you go. So it was 6 goals on 20 shots on net with a goalie in net. And
So-
that's devastating. Like it's like a 660 save percentage. Like that's just absolutely dreadful. So like, no, it certainly wasn't a great performance on the other side. And I don't think that this was some like turning point offensively where, oh, look, they were, consistently in the Sharks zone the entire game and it was consistent pressure and like all the things that we've talked about all year just like went away. Like, no, most of their goals, while none of them were power play goals, but most of their goals were still like on the break or quick sets or outlets or whatnot. So a lot on the rush still. Some beautiful plays on the rush, though.
Yeah, they're really good on the rush. That's for
Some
sure.
beautiful passes and like incredible setups. Like I don't want to make that sound like it's 100% a negative because like they do run really good plays on the rush, but it's frustrating that even against the Sharks, like you had 20 shots excluding the empty netter, you had 20 shots on net and 0 power play goals, and so like that's what you accomplished on the 5-on-5. There was one stretch in that game where they had, I think it was back-to-back power plays, and they had like 2 shots on net, and it's just, I don't know. It was just it was great because we crushed them. We're supposed to crush them, but my point is just all the areas that we've pointed out as needs for improvement and such, like they're all still very prevalent, and we're still there in this game even with the victory. But I'll take a win. So,
for example, they had their patented third period collapse. They had a 4-2 lead, and they blew that. And then Moritz Seider was able to get the 5th goal, which ended up being the inevitable game winner. But they can't. You got to be able to hold down the fort, and they just consistently could not. And again, like, we talk and joke about like get right game, and I don't even think the Sharks game was a get right game. I think the game against Columbus was the get right game with how much they dominated. But I'm not going to look past the Sharks game. I'm going to take a win when they can get it.
Absolutely.
And they worked on and improved on the things that I complain about, which is scoring at 5-on-5. 6 goals at 5-on-5 is important. They only took 1 penalty. That's important. That they dominate at 5-on-5? No. In fact, the Sharks had the edge in every single period, but periods 2 and 3 were even. Very close to being even at least. So the fact that they had an edge doesn't really mean a whole lot. But so, yeah, there are issues for sure with how the Red Wings played in that game. But I'm going to take the win. I'm going to take it because I think that's a confidence builder. You went on the road, you come back to Columbus, which is in your time zone again. Now you go to Nationwide, a team that is down and out. Columbus is very bad this year for some reason. Well, you could have predicted it, although I had them ranked way higher. In hindsight, I'm an idiot, but we don't have to talk about that.
Wow.
No, we don't got to talk about it, Scotty. Leave it alone. Leave it alone. I thought Johnny Gaudreau would carry them a lot higher than I thought he is, or they are right now. But their team that is middle of the pack, and that is what we thought they would be, and that's what we hoped they would be. Is a step forward, is a middle of the pack team, and so you're going to win games against bad teams, and you're going to lose games against good teams. You might sneak a win against a good team, and you might occasionally lose a game against a bad team, Anaheim. So in the end, these 2 games, I'm saying in the end, like we're wrapping it up. We have Columbus game to talk about. In the end, like these 2 games, I feel like leveled me out and brought my expectations back to where they were. Because you were too, but like me, especially because I'll speak for myself. I was feeling really bad about this team on that 4-game losing streak because they didn't look like a whole lot better than they did than last year's team. And these 2 wins reminded me, oh yeah, this team is better. They were just playing poorly at the time, and they're going to go through that with this new head coach, this new system, and all these new players. But they are capable of blowing these teams out, which is something they really didn't do last year. They beat bad teams, but they didn't blow them out like they did last night and on Thursday night. So it was reassuring to make me feel like, okay, they're not the best team in the world. No, but they're a middle of the pack team, and that's what we were looking for out of this team. It helped level me back out on my feelings on this team.
No, for sure. And like when we talked about it at the end of last week, like I said, like this is going to be just an inconsistent team. And like that's what they are, and that's what teams that are going through like rebuilds and trying to come out of rebuilds, like everybody hits this stage. Like this is part of the process. This is part of the plan. Like this doesn't change anyone's, like I told you off air before we started, like these are great wins, and I'm so glad that they won because they were significantly better than both teams they played, and they should have absolutely destroyed both of them, and they did, and that's awesome. But those 2 wins, just like the 4 losses prior to these 2 wins, don't change my overall outlook on the season, which is that this is a very inconsistent team. They're going to win some games they shouldn't. They're going to lose some games they shouldn't. They're probably going to end up being in
Just
the middle of the
outside.
pack in a very tough division and miss the postseason. That's what we've been saying ever since the preseason when we were all excited. We've at least come really close to maintaining a level head throughout.
We've tried.
Throughout, we are human at the end of the day, but throughout all of the ups and downs this season already, we're not even to Thanksgiving yet, and like we've already kind of handled these and been somewhat close to around the same opinion of where this team is going to be after game 82. And yeah, while these wins are great, it certainly doesn't change my outlook on the season, and that this team is going to be really inconsistent and really frustrate you at times, and then come alive and be really awesome at times.
Yeah, they're going to show you the flashes of the team they're becoming, but it's going to take a little bit longer to get there. Got to talk to you guys today about SimpliSafe. If you thought about securing your home with home security, but you have been putting it off, you'll want to listen up. Right now, Locked On Red Wings listeners can order the #1 rated SimpliSafe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. Here's why you're going to love it. In an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from SimpliSafe to capture critical evidence and verify the threat is real, so you can get priority police response. SimpliSafe is whole home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. 24/7 professional monitoring service costs less than $1 a day, less than half the price of ADT's traditional professionally installed system. With the top-rated SimpliSafe app, stay in complete control of your system anytime, anywhere. Arm or disarm, unlocked for a guest, access your cameras, or adjust system settings. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only system Locked On Red Wings recommends. Get 50% off any new SimpliSafe system at simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. This is the biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplisafe.com/lockedonnhl. There's no safe like SimpliSafe. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, let's wrap up our conversation on the Sharks game moving to Columbus. I just want to give a shout out to Erik Karlsson. The dude is a maniac. Absolutely insane. 4 points he had 4 points in that game against the Red Wings. The Sharks only scored 4 goals. So he had a point and every single goal. I don't know if it's just because he's healthy. I mean, it's an Erik Karlsson renaissance. And I tell you, I mean, I know he's making like $11 million a year and has 4 years left on his contract. But when the trade deadline comes around, the Sharks are going to get a pretty package for him if he keeps this up.
Yeah, and we talked about it at the end of last week. Like, this is a dude that they, especially if they ate some of that money,
they have to retain at least 50% with how much he's
yeah, and they will, because
they can afford to.
He's talented enough, and he's having a productive enough season. I guess I should word it. Whereas, yeah, if they eat a decent amount of that money, they could get a nice pretty return for him at the deadline. Absolutely,
they definitely can, because. And I don't want to make this Locked On Sharks. Go listen to JD Young. He's phenomenal. He does a great job. The Meme Game 100. He's on fire.
The dog, yeah.
But if they retain 50%, they're at the bottom part of the rebuild. They're just starting, so they can afford to retain 50% of that contract for the next 4 years. There's no issue. So if you retain, you're getting better draft picks in return.
50 is like the bar. Like that's like where they're gonna start, and then they're gonna see how much better how much they can improve the offers that they're already receiving by eating more and more and more, and that number is just going to go up.
By retaining 50%, they also increase the chance of them getting good draft picks in return or good prospects.
Right?
Because if
Yeah,
you want
exactly.
a team to hold on to all that money, they're not going to give you anything in return besides like
Correct.
a
It's
conditional
either
seven.
right. It's you either have to have the team you're trading them to eat the contract, or well, or you eat the contract and you get prospects. It's a one or the other type of scenario.
Also, Jake Walman getting his first goal as a Red Wing on a
Yeah,
slap shot,
3
absolute
defensemen
rocket.
scored in that
Yeah,
game for
that's
us.
crazy.
It's crazy.
It was great. And that carried over perfectly into the game against Columbus, where I think 3 defensemen scored again, or 2 defensemen scored 3 goals.
Yeah, right.
Hronek had 2, Chiarot had 1. I mean, that
You wanna
game
talk
against
about Hronek?
I mean, he's part of the conversation for sure. Let's lead off with Filip Hronek. The Red Wings won 6-1 against Columbus on Saturday night. It was the most well-rounded, complete game out of the Detroit Red Wings yet this season. I mean, they dominated every facet of that game. And Filip Hronek was a big part of that. His ability to step up into the play offensively. We've been talking a lot about the defense and what the defense
Yeah.
does defensively this year, that we haven't really mentioned the fact that Filip Hronek's actually having low-key a career year in offensive production, which is the primary way that he plays the game. He's got 10 assists and 4 goals for 14 points in 18 games played. Offensively, he's been providing a ton of upside on that side of the puck. It's just the defensive side of, like, there was a goal earlier in the game. The one goal that Columbus scored where he had I think was a beer league chump on Twitter said he got his soul sucked out of him on that goal.
Yeah.
So
It's
yeah.
We talk about like the Ben Chiarot experience and like he giveth and taketh away. Filip Hronek giveth and taketh away too.
Absolutely.
That's a dude that, as you said, and as has been pointed out by quite a few people now, like he is having a really good offensive season, and that shouldn't go unnoticed. And he does deserve a lot of credit for that, obviously. And yeah, this was a dude like 2 years ago during like the really like low depths of this rebuild and like the teardown that people kind of looked at and were like, he's one of the only players on this roster that you could kind of see being on this team relatively long term, right?
When
Like
Nick
it was
when
really
Nick
just him.
Cronwall, sorry.
And then you know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was really
No.
just him. And
When Cronwall retired, he had to be the number 1 defenseman.
yeah,
He was forced into that role
right.
until Moritz Seider came along.
Yeah, and so he was one, and I don't think anyone expected him to stick around at top pairing, but I think he was literally offense, defense, like in that he was one of the only people on the roster that you could look at and kind of see a future path of him sticking around long term on the team, and well, except for Larkin, obviously, and so they I mean he's been good offensively, and his ability to really drive offensive possessions from the blue line is really impressive, and he has the ability to play quarterback a little bit, which is something that I think is again really important, and has like power play potential and all that. And he's been fine offensively. He's been really good offensively this year. It's just a continued frustration because defensively it's a completely different story. But in the same breath, that's why you pair him with Mata consistently, right? Like that's why you do that, and because you have one of the defensemen out there, and Mata got a little bump in offensive production to start off the season, but that's flattened already, and I don't think we really expect that. So yeah, you go out there and you put one offensive defenseman, like pure offensive defenseman out there, and then one true defensive defenseman out there, and they share a pairing, and it has worked out pretty well, as we talked about last week and a half ago, maybe, that they're one of the better defensive pairings in the NHL, right now. So it's a give take situation with Filip Hronek, is my point.
Oh, I mean, you're completely right. I mean, he's 100% offense, 0% defense.
Right.
I mean, you can watch it during games. I already said it, but that one goal Columbus gave out is because he was just flailing in the defensive zone, getting danced. But then he goes out and he jumps out into the middle of the slot for the puck to pop out to him, and he rips it past Korpisalo. And then on the other goal he scored was just an absolute snipe. And Dylan Larkin credit to Dylan Larkin for actually carrying the puck across the blue line. He lost control of it, followed it to the boards, saw Filip Hronek breaking weak side because everyone's watching Larkin. saw Hronek breaking weak side, pass it across, and Hronek tucked that puck behind the back bar next to the water bottle. And he was the only one who knew it went in because it went in so fast. So, I mean, he has the ability to shoot. His vision offensively is very impressive. Like, he knows when to step up. His problem is getting caught and then preventing zone entries.
Right.
He's our version of John Klingberg. He's literally John Klingberg light for the Detroit Red Wings. In the fact that he provides an offensive upside, and it's amazing, but when the puck's coming back the other way, it's like, oh, well, he's not really a defenseman in the end. He's just, the thing is he's one of those defensemen, and there's plenty of them like that, where you watch and you go, why is this guy playing defense? He's clearly an offensive-oriented guy. Why don't they play forward? But you put that guy on wing, and he doesn't work the same.
Yeah.
That type of defenseman
He
only
plays
works.
quarterback back there. Like I said, like he really does. He has the ability to drive a play from the blue line and really play QB back there. Like it's not the offensive production is real. Like it's not fluky. Like it's because of how he plays the game. It's just with how he plays the game comes poor defense.
But that's what I'm saying, is that you can't put a guy like Filip Hronek on a wing and expect him to produce the same. Like he only works because he's playing from the back end. He only works as the last man in. He only works as a guy who has the entire ice in front of him. You put him on the wing, half the time your ass is planted on the boards and you have to look forward and backward. That only works because he can see everything happening and know when to step up. So that's why offensive defensemen like him work. Offensively, just not really defensively. But Filip Hronek, you're red hot right now, or as a lot of people are saying on Twitter, red hot. You're looking good. Keep it up. Let's see who else. Moritz Seider had a 3-point night last night against the Columbus Blue Jackets, which was absolutely phenomenal to see. Great to see. And we'll break that down because I'm looking at the time. We'll break that down after this word from BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those over at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Now we can talk about Moritz Seider. I got excited there. Started getting excited because the Red Wings played really well last night and got ahead of myself. It's like, oh, we got to talk BetOnline. So, Moritz Seider, like I said, it seems like that goal against the Sharks kind of built his confidence up, and he had a great game in the game against the Columbus Blue Jackets. 3 assists, one of which, Scotty, was nasty.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we talked about it literally right before the weekend, right? Like we talked about it at the end of last week and how
right after we made that episode.
Right. It's not that he's been bad or struggled. He just hasn't been like I'm going to light the world on fire and be a headlining player like he was last season. And it's still very early, and that is looking like it could be around the corner. Now, obviously, one game will take it in stride, but no, he looked phenomenal. And the thing is that makes him so special is that a lot of his great offense is derived from like good defense, and he's been really good in front of the net and such, but his defensive presence like at the blue line and in the neutral zone on like rushes or like just fast possessions or zone entries or whatnot is so impressive. And he utilizes, whether it's turnovers, pokes, hits, etc., he just utilizes his such strong defense out there so well that when the Wings get the puck back or he gets the puck on his stick, then he, makes a rush for the opponent's zone, and he's so effective and is such a good stick handler for how big he is. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know, I guess, but he's phenomenal. And this game really highlighted all those skills in one.
I mean, he was playing with a type of confidence we haven't seen from him in this season.
Yeah.
That was like we were watching last season Moritz Seider, and I think that this is a building block. These last 2 games are huge building blocks for him to get that confidence to play that type of game again. Again, not that he was ever bad this season. He was still good, but he didn't have that kind of cachet that he did last season. And now that game against the Blue Jackets, especially, it felt like it was there. It felt like he had it. And I mean, let's talk about the team as a whole. the Red Wings as a whole just played fantastic. They got power play goals. They killed penalty kills. They scored at 5-on-5. They dominated at 5-on-5. And remember, the Columbus Blue Jackets are, again, one of the worst teams in the league. We've had a stretch of a few of those teams back to back to back. But they played a really well-rounded game in this one, and it was very reassuring to see because we talk about how you have to beat up on the teams that you have to beat up on, and they did in this case. And there was never a doubt that they were going to. I mean, maybe when they tied it up and made it 1-1, I was like, oh, here we go. But then they immediately bounced back, and it was there were so many good moments in this game. We could talk about everyone who scored. Tyler Bertuzzi got his first goal in this one as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just a great game. Larkin got another one, as did Kubalik. Perron's getting back on the score sheet. Yeah, dude. What? But Perron also, I mean, I don't think he scored. He scored in the game against the Sharks, but he didn't score in this one. But he's getting back on the point sheet after being a little bit sluggish.
2 or 3 points in the Sharks game alone.
I mean, the amount of points that I think there was. Let's see how many guys had multi-point nights in this game. I didn't even look at that.
Kopp had 2 points. Larkin had 3 points. Raymond had 2 points. Hronek had 2 goals. Cider had 3 points. Yeah.
So there were 5 multi-point nights for these guys. I mean, all the way around, it was a great night. And nice to see Andrew Kopp get an assist as well. I mean, it was a great game. And Husso played well in net. So that's just the type of game.
Phenomenal.
Just absolutely out of his mind. He made 27 saves. I mean, that's not a light workload. I mean, that's close to 30 shots. That's a full night's worth of work.
There were also a lot of really difficult saves in that game for him. He looked unreal.
Yeah, he made 4 high danger saves, and then he made 6 mid danger saves. So it's not like it was super easy for him. So, I mean, overall, that's why I was saying earlier in the episode, this was the get right game because they played a complete 60 minutes with no collapse, and they dominated every facet of the ice. And it's just like this is the type of game you want to see from this team going forward. They killed off every penalty. They scored a power play goal. They scored 5-on-5 goals. It's 5 of them. I mean, that was one of those games, Scotty, where you're just like, okay, this team's not awful. Thank God.
Right.
This team's what we thought they were.
Yeah, for sure. And again, like I said it earlier, just because it doesn't change my opinion of the season because it's 2 bad teams, you still did what you were supposed to do, and I'm very happy about that. This is what should have happened. Right, they scored 13 goals in 2 games. This is what should have happened. That's a great accomplishment, a great weekend, a very successful weekend, and hopefully it gets them back on track against better teams now as we transition, away from the West Coast road trip and get back home and stuff. So yeah, great weekend, very successful weekend. We already talked about Husso. I think for this game specifically, it was one of the better 5-on-5 offensive performances. And I know you touched on that a little bit earlier, but we talk so much about consistent opportunities in the offensive zone. And this team has a incredible inability to consistently apply pressure and stay in the opponent's zone and in the offensive zone for, I don't know, more than 20 seconds, it seems like. And this was finally a game, while it wasn't some stellar masterclass, it did feel like at 5-on-5, they were at least able to put the pressure on Columbus for a lot of the game. And there was still a little bit there. I think it was the end of the second period. There was still, 5-10 minute stretches even where it felt a little, okay, we're going to try to play good defense and then just get out on the rush and whatnot. It wasn't a full 60, but it more so than a lot of other games this season, I thought the offensive zone pressure was a step in the right direction. Maybe that's not the right phrase. It was just better than we're used to.
Absolutely.
Who knows if it's a step in the right direction or not, but it was better than what we're used to.
Listen, I think it was a step in the right direction just from the standpoint that they played a complete game and they finished it out and they blew them out. I mean, that is what you obviously want to do every game. You're not going to do that every game. That's but they proved that they have it in them, and they proved that they can make those adjustments. Now go out there on Wednesday and do it against the Nashville Predators, who aren't the best team in the league, but they're not bad either. That's a comparable team to your own. They have a couple of really nice players on their team. But that's a team that you should be able to hang in with. And we'll obviously do a preview on Tuesday because they don't play until Wednesday. But Also want to talk about too, and bring it up every so often, but Dylan Larkin and Dominic Kubalik continue to be production machines. Dylan Larkin is leading the team with 22 points in 18 games played. He had a multi-point night on Saturday. He had at least 1 point on Friday. Same with Kubalik. He had the empty net, Thursday rather. Kubalik had the empty netter on Thursday. He had a rocket of a slap shot one-timer on Saturday night. So 21 points in 18 for Kubalik, 22 in 18 for Larkin. I mean, this is what we expect out of Larkin. Be slightly over a point per game when he's healthy. But Kubalik, man, he just further continues to prove the value of his signing, man.
Yeah. He's awesome. I don't know how many times we have to reiterate it, but yeah, he's awesome. He is so cool, and I love him.
Filip Hronek is second in plus minus at +8. I mean, man, I don't like using plus minus as an end all be all stat, but it's definitely a nice supplemental. And that means because that's a stat that only goes up or down based on 5-on-5 play. So that means he's been out there for 8 more goals for than against this season, and Dylan Larkin leads the team at 9. So those two guys can carry the offense at 5-on-5 for sure. But what else needs to be said? Oh, Nicholas Lidstrom, the best Swedish hockey player of all time. Sweden declared that. And we'll definitely talk about that tomorrow.
Damn right.
Damn right. Best Swedish hockey player of all time from Sweden's mouth themselves. Sweden has one mouth, singular. I don't know. Just having fun. Any final thoughts, man? You got anything you got getting off your chest?
I don't think so. We ball.
I mean, you got
Happy World Cup. Don't do that, dude.
I'm not.
Don't be that person.
It's just not so hot in the World Cup right now because of the whole Cater situation, but we don't got to get into that.
I mean, I'm just talking about the game of soccer, but I guess like, if you want to go down that rabbit hole,
no, let's not touch on that. Let's not touch on
that. The World Cup's one of my favorite sporting events ever, and it's only once every 4 years, so it's cool.
Lions won 3 in a row.
3 straight for the boys. Yeah,
they've got one more win than they got last season already, which is great. And Michigan, Ohio State's this weekend coming up. So
happy 8 week.
Happy 8 week.
Hate week.
Hate week. Okay, I don't know what that. I was like, what did he just say? 8 week? I didn't know what that meant.
Happy hate week. Yeah.
Happy hate week. All right. Enough of us being doofuses. Mostly me. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time.
BetOnline.
There. You see, you're a doofus too. Same place. It's your team every day.